Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and to another watch review. This one's gonna be kind of quick, and again, as I always say, something kind of special. Let's talk about the Forgotten Rolex. Forgotten may not be the right word, but this is one of those Rolexes that really has never gotten a lot of love. And what's really interesting about this watch is it really is, in my mind, and a lot of people's minds, responsible for launching the whole Rolex sports range of watches. And as you guys know, if you guys are into Rolexes, the sports range is what really dominates the Rolex range. I mean, everybody thinks about the Submariners, the GMT Masters, the Explorers, the Daytonas, etc. I mean, the Datejust and the Presidents, of course, are important, but the sports models are what really hold their value and what really drive the Rolex market. Before we get started, I am wearing a Rolex for this review, my beautiful Rolex Explorer 2 with the polar dial. I love this thing, and I think it's still my favorite Rolex of all time. So here's the deal, guys. We all know the Submariner, we all know the GMT Master, we all know the sports watches that really define Rolex, but how many of you guys have ever heard of the Turnograph? No? What about the Thunderbird? So the Thunderbird and the Turnograph are one and the same, and I think this is one of the most misunderstood Rolexes probably of all time. So the Rolex Thunderbird or Turnograph goes by both names, and it's part of the Datejust line. It's actually been discontinued for several years. Last was made about 2011 or so, and the last version is actually the one that I want to talk to you guys about on this video. In particular, the 116264, which is built on the 36mm Datejust platform, but unlike the Datejust, the standard Datejust, not only do you get some kind of cool colors going on with the second hand and such, but you also get the bi-directional bezel. And the bi-directional bezel is what makes this watch so impressive, because this watch goes back before we ever had the Submariner and the GMT Master. This is really the first Rolex tool watch, the first Rolex sports watch. Well, the first Rolex production tool or sports watch. There actually was a model before the Turnograph ever came out called the Zerograph, which you can check out online if you do some Google image searches. It's a very, very rare watch. Apparently it was a prototype. The bezel actually kind of reminds me of the bezel on my Seiko Monster, which is a plus for me. And I believe, if I recall from the top of my mind, it's actually a flyback too, which is kind of cool. But Rolex never built that for the public, but they did build the Turnograph for the public. And it came out about 1953. The first model that came out was the 6202. And what made the 6202 cool was it used the oyster case. So you had that watertight waterproofness of the era, but you also got a bi-directional bezel. And they did this so you could time basic events. You know, anytime I shoot one of those videos at diver watches, I talk about you can rotate the bezel and you can time your popcorn or anything you want to. Turnograph's no different. The difference between the Turnograph and, say, a Submariner is that the bezel is bi-directional, so you can rotate a Turnograph either way. The Submariners are unidirectional, so you can never take away time. The Turnograph, you can adjust it on the fly any which way, just like actually my GMT Master, which would be a kind of a good comparison here. But you have to understand, when this watch came out, this stuff didn't exist. And it was actually such a novel concept that's actually how the watch got its name, Thunderbird. So the word Thunderbird actually comes from the US Thunderbird Air Squadron, which is a professional flying squadron of the armed forces. I don't know the full history, and frankly, I'm not going to get into it here because I can't really do it justice, but there actually is quite a bit of cool history there and how this watch adopted its name from the Air Squad. After this watch got started, you saw the other two Rolexes come out, the GMT Masters, the Explorers, the Rolex Submariners. This is the first waterproof watch that Rolex built for the public with a turnable bezel. And again, this is pre-GMT Master. This is the granddaddy of all Rolex tool watches, and it's a really cool piece. So back to the watch we're here to review, which I've been showing for you guys now. The 116264. Architecture is Datejust, so it comes in a standard 36mm case. This version is stainless. These also do come in a mix of precious metals. This is actually the first Rolex, I believe, the original Turnograph was the first Rolex to use mixed metals, to have like a two-tone option. I'm pretty sure in saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure some Rolex historian's gonna shoot me if I'm wrong there, but I believe this was the first Rolex to use two-tone options. So this particular version, though, again, I'm showing you, it was discontinued about 2011, and again, 36mm case. It has that nice bi-directional bezel, so you can rotate it back and forth to, you know, adjust the time of your countdown. And because it has a 31-35 movement in it, which is the same movement you'd find in tons and tons of Rolexes, from, you know, the Submariner date to the Sea Dweller, I mean, just the general Datejust. Rolex uses this movement in a ton of their stuff, or derivatives thereof. The GMT Masters use like 3185, 3186, similar architecture. The no-date Rolexes use typically a 3035 no-date architecture. this movement is all over the place. So anyway, it uses the standard 3135 movement. Just a quick refresher on that. 31 joules, 28,800 beats per hour. It's gonna give you that nice smooth sweep. And the thing again about this watch is nobody really knows about it. I've seen a handful of these things, I think in the course of my life, and I've seen God knows how many Submariners out there. I mean, I walk around feeling like my Explorer 2 is a rare watch, but this thing is on a whole nother level of rarity. I think the one thing that kind of hurts it in modern times is beyond the fact that nobody really knows what it is that it came in that 36mm case. And obviously sizes have escalated beyond that. And we're now in a world where everybody wants 40mm plus watches. Well, not everybody, but majority of the market seems to. So I think it's kind of what hurt it, but this is kind of one of those neglected, forgotten bits of Rolex history that I just think is super cool. I've always kind of had a soft spot for these things. If they ever came out with a larger size case version, I would strongly consider buying one. I like that they're kind of unique and cool, and it's not just your standard Datejust, it's something special. It has the Thunderbird Squadron history. It's the first Rolex tool watch history. It's a very, very significant watch lineage that kind of gets often overlooked. And as these things go, usually the most neglected Rolexes end up increasing in value. So we'll see where this one goes. It definitely happened with the old Milgaus and the older Daytonas. So time will tell. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna keep this one real short since this is very similar to the other Rolex tool watches that are out there. Just a couple more quick facts. Standard Rolex marked crown. It is not the trip lock. It is the standard. It's gonna give you about 100 meters of water resistance. It's gonna give you the standard Rolex case. It's gonna give you the blank case back. Unfortunately, I do think the 3135 movement is a good looking movement. I would like to see it exposed. I love the red wheels, and we won't get into that. But anyway, it comes on the standard oyster style bracelet. This one, as you can see, has some nice polishing on it. Screw out links, great, easy to size this thing. I love it for that. This has the newer Rolex clasps, the fold over, the machining is great, the quality is great, unlike some of those older chintzy ones they used to make. If you're out there looking for a Datejust, this to me is really where you want to go. Although I do love the Jubilee bracelet, and if this watch came on a Jubilee, I'd probably like it that much more. But why buy a Datejust when you can buy a Turnograph? I mean, again, this is just kind of that conversation piece. That's something special nobody else really has, and I just love it for that. So, talked enough, wanted to keep this kind of short, but again, this is just kind of one of those rarer Rolexes you don't see very much, and just thought I'd call it out to you guys. So let me know what you guys think below in the comment section below. What do you guys think of the Rolex Turnograph Thunderbird? What do you think about the history? Does that history matter to you? And is this a watch you guys would ever consider? If no, why not? If yes, why so? I'm genuinely curious about it. As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the support. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe somewhere around me. And more future watch content is on the way. I have a bunch more videos. I just need to get around to editing, and I've been lazy, but they are coming. I know I've put some other random content out there recently. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I had some messages I thought were important that I wanted to share, but fear not, the channel's a watch channel through and through, and occasionally some engineering crap thrown in there, maybe some car reviews and stuff. I do like mechanical geeky stuff. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Take care, guys. I'll catch you guys real soon. Later.